All right, fantastic. My name is Daniel Schoonmaker. I'm the Executive Director of Michigan Salem Business Forum, and I am pleased to welcome you to today's presentation of the Michigan Salem Business Forum Safe and Sustainable Foodware series. For those who are not familiar with our organization, the forum is collaboration of business institutions. We're in promote practices that advance climate leadership, social justice, and the creation of a circular economy. We host events and programs throughout the state of Michigan, the Great Lakes area, including this webinar series and other series like it. Thank you to the University of Illinois Chicago and the Environmental Protection Agency for supporting this work, which is funded through the EPA fiscal year 23-24 pollution prevention grants, environmental justice through safer, more sustainable products program. If you are not a member of Michigan Salem Business Forum, you can become a member today at misbf.org/join, or you can send me a note in the chat today for more information. I would like to join you would like you to join us for our next forum webinar, which is part of a different program, creating a tax system for food donation in Michigan, which is next week, April 7th at 11 a.m. The next iteration of this series is coming up a month from now on May 5th. Also at 10 a.m. as is today. You can find more information about these events, the links in the chat that should be appearing shortly, or at misbf.org/events. Now I'd like to introduce our program for today, which I am very excited to participate in, and expect to learn quite a bit from our panelists. Safe and Sustainable Foodware, closing the loop with certified compostables. For our attendees, please note that you can share thoughts and questions with the panelists or all attendees through either the Q&A function or the chat function. We will have time at the end of the presentation for open questions and answers. I'd like to introduce our first speaker for today, Savannah Seydel. Sorry, my starts kicking in there, Vice President of Sustainability at Better Earth LLC. Thank you, Savannah. I'm looking forward to your talk.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, Daniel. Can everybody see the screen? All good? And I'm going to assume so. Well, hi, everybody. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you to the Michigan Sustainable Business Forum, to the EPA and University of Illinois Chicago for sponsoring and hosting this conversation. I know a lot of work goes into this. So thank you. And thank you for inviting me to participate. So without further ado, my name is Savannah Seydel, as Daniel mentioned, and I'm the Vice President of Sustainability at Better Earth. We're a compostable food service packaging company headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, and we're a mission-driven business. We strive to create 100% plant-based compostable packaging that makes sustainability goals achievable and regenerative circularity achievable within the food service industry. We're advancing this mission across the country, including in Michigan, which is our founder's home state, fun fact. And packaging is really just where the conversation begins. We know that the food service industry has a profound opportunity to make a difference in the environment, given both the waste generated and the impact that we can make when we flip the switch. So packaging is really where Better Earth just starts the conversation. We're proud to participate in larger conversations from a leadership perspective, including on the board of the Biodegradable Products Institute. And given the topic today, that's a hat that I will also be wearing as we kick off this discussion on safer packaging alternatives, where certification plays a pretty critical role. I always like to start with a why, right? Why are we talking about this? Why compostables? And for me, it's because I feel the current system is not working. I think this visual offers a pretty poignant representation of that, of the hockey stick growth that conventional plastics have had over the years, right? Plastic was barely used outside of the military 70 years ago, and now we can't live without it. And plastic has offered incredible innovation, technology, medical advances, you name it, but it is nonetheless dependent on a non-renewable resource, petroleum. And I feel that given that, we should be employing that non-renewable resource where it really has an impact. and not for something that we typically use for 30 seconds or less, like food service packaging. So this graph that I'm showing you indicates the growth of plastic production over the years, but also how much is discarded, incinerated, and recycled. And you can see there that there's a pretty big gap. So the sheer volume of plastic food service packaging is flooding our homes, trash bins, and our environment, and it's extending the limit of what our waste management systems can handle. I know that Peter and Greg will also be touching on that, including how regulations are now trying to tackle it. There's voluntary corporate plastic reductions, you name it. And there's also been an influx of sustainable alternatives to purchase, right? Well, with that, we've now gotten a tidal wave of sustainable solutions. You've probably seen these names as you've shopped around, and companies are frankly creating confusion in the market by presenting a variety of plant-based alternatives with the primary goal of getting your attention. This is considered greenwashing when there's the practice of making misleading or false claims about a product, service, or organization's environmental benefits and not backing it up with verification or validation. And so, what do all these claims mean? And do they mean anything? Where do we go, right? Well, let's check in on those claims and pull back. While biodegradable, oxo-biodegradable, and biofading products can claim environmental attributes and often include a small influx of plant-based material, they do not offer a truly circular end of life because they still typically need an influx of petroleum-based inputs. And because of that, they must go into the landfill. They can't be accepted in a recycling or composting facility, creating confusion for consumers, for operators, and also for waste management systems at the end of life. Likewise, not all compostables are created equal either. Manufacturers of disposable food serviceware have historically added a chemical called PFAS, which represents a family of over 3,000 fluorinated chemicals into packaging for heat and moisture resistance. The most studied chemicals in this class, PFOA and PFOS, have been associated with several health impacts, including cancer and developmental toxicity. PFAS is also highly persistent, and it can migrate into food from food serviceware. So this has come into the news over the last 5 to 10 years and has largely been transitioned out of the food service packaging industry. But you can never be fully sure. And frankly, pulling back, sharing all of these terms, it can feel pretty defeating as we think back to that original graph I was showing you around how we navigate the noise and how we really lean into a circular alternative. So that's the point of the conversation that I want to share with you today, that safer, sustainable, plant-based solutions do exist. And I'd like to walk you through the tools to identify and differentiate them in the market. Certified compostable packaging is proving to be a powerful tool, working hand in hand with reusables and recyclables to help advance a circular economy. Compostable food serviceware, by definition, must break down in 90 to 180 days at least in a commercial composting setting and leave nothing behind but nutrient-rich compost. And diving a little deeper, our compostable packaging is made from rapidly renewable resources that sequester carbon in the soil as they're grown, right? These are agricultural-based products. And then at their end of life, if you follow this circular graphic, they sequester carbon yet again when they break down in commercial composting facilities like Greg's. They also offer a double whammy for diversion. Whereas conventional recyclable plastic must be free of any food waste residue before going into the bin. Think about that stubborn peanut butter on your peanut butter jar, right? That's a contaminant within the recycling system. All of that food waste is nitrogen gold for composters, right? In a composting setting, all of that, the packaging and the food waste can go into one bin, and that makes a smoother experience for consumers. In simplest form, compostable packaging is really striving to help us close the loop from what we say field to fork to field. But I want to dive more into how we differentiate these in the market and elaborate further around what makes up compostable packaging in the first place. So first and foremost, certification. If we leave with anything today from my conversation, I hope it is this, that certifications are critical tools to differentiate these types of packaging from the rest. So BPI, or the Biodegradable Products Institute, is the largest third-party certifier of compostable food service packaging in North America. Their mark isn't just a claim, but it's really a clear label of trust, compliance, and risk management. A BPI mark on packaging, as you see here, means that a product has been independently tested and verified to meet ASTM standards for either commercial or home compostability. It means that it has gone through a toxicity screening across a comprehensive panel of heavy metals, endocrine disruptors, and other chemicals of concern, and includes a mandate for no intentionally added fluorine. And lastly, there's the review and approval by technical experts. From there, manufacturers of certified packaging then follow strict labeling guidelines, as you can see again on this packaging here, to ensure that their packaging is easily distinguishable among consumers, operators, and composters for meeting all of that criteria for compostability. And so if we pull back and think through a certified compostable checklist, it's really these three core components. Compostable packaging should have some type of coloring to help distinguish it: beige, green, or brown, typically. The term compostable in big lettering alongside the FTC language that you can see in the smaller print here. And then BPI swirl logo or an equivalent certification. This checklist aligns typically with truth in labeling legislation that has also come out, helping mandate clear labeling of sustainable alternatives in states like Colorado, Washington, and Minnesota, among others. And there's also equivalent compostability certifications as well. BPI is the main one, but you might also see logos from equivalent certifiers like the Compost Manufacturing Alliance or TÜV Austria, which is the European equivalent. So now let's talk a little bit more about what's in these products themselves. I'll highlight two product categories: molded fiber and bioplastics, because they're the most visible and often the most discussed in the marketplace today. So molded fiber is, it starts with its humble beginnings as the egg carton, right? We're all familiar with an egg carton. These are thermoformed products. And some of the most common materials that comprise molded fiber are bamboo and sugarcane bagasse. So sugarcane bagasse is the byproduct of the sugar extraction process. And this is a raw material that is traditionally landfilled or otherwise incinerated. And so the compostable packaging industry has found a new home and diverted this material from that end of life to create and thermoformed packaging. Similarly, bamboo at Better Earth is sourced from the byproducts of the bamboo furniture industry. And it's another rapidly renewable perennial product in that, unlike lumber, which takes about 40 years until it can be harvested, bamboo on its own can grow up to 3 feet per day. So very renewable resource. And beyond the egg carton, there's a lot of innovation that's happening behind the scenes. And I wanted to highlight some of that for you. So as an example, on the Better Earth side, we've been working with partners to bring compostable manufacturing to the United States. Through our Farmers Fiber program, we work with a network of growers to source perennial grasses like switchgrass, sorghum, and miscanthus that require minimal tillage, that have tap roots that can grow 2 stories long, and in so doing, rebuild the soil. When we're doing all of this, we are sequestering at least a ton of carbon per acre per year within the agricultural process. The raw material is then dried, pulped, and thermoformed in Tennessee, creating a pretty hyper-local and resilient supply chain. And this kind of innovation matters. At the beginning, how I was talking about how our waste management systems are bursting at the seams. Well, in Tennessee, that's real. Their landfills are filling up and they might be fully reaching capacity within 3 years. And as a result, the state is now looking for more scalable, community-supported ways to divert waste, including recycling and composting. We're supporting this through this manufacturing process and creating compostable alternatives. But in addition, we're also working with composting partners like the Compost Co. in Nashville, Tennessee, to literally purchase up compost itself and apply it back to the lands that grow our perennial grasses that make compostable packaging. So in so doing, trying to fully close the loop on the process. And by this spring, we'll have procured enough compost to fill 6 tractor trailers. And it's something that we're really proud of. And now onto bioplastics. These are a pretty incredible, innovative feat because they literally look and feel like plastic, but break down fully in a commercial composting setting. And as such, this could also raise a lot of questions and possibly some concerns. So I thought it might be helpful to dive deeper into how bioplastics are made, how are they comprised, and it's going to include a little science. So I want to offer the trigger warning that this is no lab coats are required for what I'm going to go through. I'm going to keep this very high level, and if there are any deeper questions, I can direct you to the technical experts that can dive much deeper into this than I can. But at a high level, here's a quick graphic for you, thanks to the Biodegradable Products Institute. So what you're looking at here are the bonds for traditional conventional plastic. Think polyethylene, polypropylene, polystyrene. They are built around strong carbon backbones. Don't worry, there's not going to be a quiz after this. What I'm trying to say is that these bonds are built to last. So as you see here through this graphic, right, as we go through that real world composting environment, they are meant to stay stable, right? That's a benefit to plastics. And they're meant to be resistant to heat, moisture, and microbial activity, which are the very conditions present in a composting environment. So that's when conventional plastics enter a composting facility. They never fully biodegrade, but rather crack and fragment into smaller and smaller pieces because that underlying polymer structure remains intact. So if we look at that compared to compostable plastic, they employ polyesters or polymers linked together with ester bonds found in nature. So you know how leaves can feel waxy? That's polyesters found in nature. For compostable materials, these bonds are strong enough for everyday use, right? To get our products from A to B and safely used. But then they fully come apart in an industrial composter's conditions like Greg's. And he'll speak more to that. You know, as you can see in the image, those bonds, right, in that real world composting environment are breaking down into carbon dioxide and water, which are exactly what a compost pile's microbes need to fuel up and help plants grow. So I hope this has offered a little more insight under the curtain of compostable packaging, helped answer a few questions, and showed you what certified compostables can do within a broader circular economy. These are powerful vehicles that can be used alongside reusables and recyclables in the right conditions. And certification remains the most important tool for differentiating safe and sustainable alternatives from greenwashing. So, if you want to continue the conversation, I was reminded to elevate to everybody that the BPI Summit is coming to Michigan. So I hope that you save the date. Join BPI for 2 full days of hands-on learning and conversations about composting and compostable packaging. Registration will be opening in May, so please follow BPI on LinkedIn or on their website to learn more. And I hope to see you there. But with that, I just appreciate the time and the opportunity to share, and I'll pass things back to Daniel.
Thank you much so much, Savannah. And I'm also looking forward to the BPI Summit in Detroit this fall. The Again, everyone will be having Q&A at the end of our program today for all 3 speakers. Now I'd like to welcome Peter Woudwyk, Category Specialist for North American Packaging and Serviceware Disposables at Gordon Food Service, which, by the way, is the products that we use at our events. Peter, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel, and appreciate the business and support buying those products as well. So glad to hear that. My name is Peter Woudwyk. I've been with Gordon Food Service about 16 years, but in the past 4 years, been able to kind of lean into our sustainable initiatives within food service packaging and kind of what we offer to our customers. As I get into that, I'll share some details, but see if I can get my slides to work. There we go. As part of our stewardship mission at Gordon Food Service, I'm not going to read the whole script, but we're really focusing on our people, our environment, and our communities, as you see highlighted on the slide. couple cool things that I think we've partnered with recently is we do send all of our compostable products to Greg at Organicycle from our home office. So this past year, we've sent about 7 tons of materials to Greg to compost in his facility. So really proud to see that kind of end-to-end full life cycle within our own facilities. And then also just recently, locally, our Kent County parks we've partnered with and have found some different initiatives to kind of extend our vision of stewardship throughout our community as well. And that kind of leads into how we're offering products and services to our customers, which are food service operators as well, which will be my next slide here. So getting into kind of sourcing sustainable food service packaging, it really starts with what our customers are asking for. A lot of our customers come from a broad spectrum of backgrounds and initiatives. We got restaurants, we have healthcare facilities, we have educational and school facilities that all have kind of different visions of what sustainability looks like, and may have their own mission statements around sustainability as well. There's a couple of stats that we've uncovered over our research is 71% of the millennial generation believes it's important for food service operators to offer some type of sustainable, friendly packaging solution in their mix of goods. And another thing is regarding, I guess, the customer demand piece. We're seeing sustainable and compostable solutions growing at over 3 times the rate of plastic materials or non-sustainable materials as well. So, of course, we want to lean into those solutions and make sure that our customers, which are those restaurants and schools and hospitals, are being heard, and we're providing some different solutions as well. So by doing that, we're actually partnering with folks like Better Earth and other suppliers to really make sure that we're meeting those needs. As you see on the screen, there's some different examples. I know Savannah also shared some of hers as well. But really, that supply chain that we're looking at is making sure that we have consistent supply, whether that be domestic or international supply, and making sure that we're also meeting the certifications that Savannah went through earlier. And our customers, depending on where they are and what they want to lean into, could be open to different types of certifications. I believe there's an ask about, is there a difference from BPI to TUV? There are some slight differences, but we want to be open and make sure that we have flexibility to our customers on what's being offered in that space. And then also just making sure that our suppliers, our accreditations are legitimate as well, and that we're not offering any greenwashing products as well. So we're doing some vetting of our own to make sure that the products that Gordon Food Service offers is actually legitimate, and make sure that it's being adhered to the standards of the compostability industry as well. In terms of material suitability, the bottom there, just making sure that the products are matching up with customer expectations. We did talk about PLA earlier in those bioplastics. Super great products, but they do have sometimes a lower heat retention. So we've found that in certain environments like Texas, there are certain types of materials that will actually melt in the heat. So we just want to make sure that we're providing equivalent solutions, maybe in a paperboard compostable solution versus a bioplastic. So we're just really making sure that our salespeople and our customers are aware of the product sets and what they're suited for in all of those situations. And of course, the end of life solution as well. Where is that product going to land at? And hopefully it's going to land at either a local composting facility, such as Organicycle, or potentially in a home composting solution. Part of our brand that I'm going to get into next really kind of speaks to the end user experience. How do they make sure that those products are being put into the proper facility or location that we'd like to lean into there. I guess maybe one more thing that I'd like to mention is Gordon Food Service is also representing product in both U.S. and Canada. And Canada also has some different certifications and rules that we need to account for. So there will be some standards that we're trying to apply across both countries to make sure that we're adhering to local and governmental needs across both countries and even smaller municipalities as well. Something that's relatively newer to the industry is what's called extended producer responsibility, which is really making sure that the producers of goods and Gordon Food Service are making sure that we're securing product in the most effective way possible. And it puts a little bit more ownership on the products that are going into our waste streams and making sure that they're getting to the proper facilities. It's really encouraging the industry to lean into more compostable products, more reusable products to reduce going into just the landfill waste stream as well. So something that's new and coming into our market, but it's overall a great piece that we're leaning into and finding ways to service our customers and, of course, government requirements as well. That is it for what I have for sourcing sustainability, but a lot of different types of questions that we try to answer for our customers and making sure that we're solving those needs. I just want to kind of touch on what we've done within our own brand called Resource. Here's a few different examples of what our product really looks like, but really calling out on the product itself to what the end of life stream should go to. So you can see in that middle green image, compostable. On the right, it's recyclable, and then the orange is reusable. So it kind of screams like at the end user, hey, where this product should end up at. And then this is kind of just, of course, the life cycle that we kind of adhere to, making sure that we're sourcing these sustainably. And that, of course, our end user knows the action to take at the end of that product's life cycle as well. Regarding what products that we've sourced from different suppliers that Savannah also kind of spoke to, but kind of a wide breadth of different products that are considered compostable within this line. And we're really excited, and it's probably our strongest breadth of product within our resource offering is the compostable grouping, knowing that these products are going to facilities that can be broken down. They've been certified, they've been tested, and that we are doing the right things to service our customers in their environments effectively. And that is it for me, but appreciate you guys taking the time to listen, and really appreciate the time being here today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Peter. And again, we're going to hold questions until the end of our presentation today. Now I'm delighted to welcome Greg Mankowski, Master Composter at Organicycle Composting, which serves based in Grand Rapids and serves the entire West Michigan area.
Thanks, Daniel. Can everybody see me?
We can see a picture of a compost yard. Yes, Greg.
Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. Composter Greg Mankowski here. I'm a certified compost operations manager through the United States Composting Council and have been in the composting industry for nearly 9 years. My experience originally started in my backyard, simply with coffee grounds and banana peels, things of that nature. And I took that hobby and wanted to scale it up and got a job in the community scale composting program and worked that for a number of years. And that's where I was introduced to certified compostable products and had my shot at composting them and realized, hey, I can do this. I don't need to be an industrial composter. But as I continued to work, I wanted to continue to scale up, and I've been working with Organicycle for the last 4.5 years, composting industrially. And so for the last 8 years, I've been accepting these BPI certified compostable products, and I've heard all the myths. They don't break down quick enough. They lead to contamination. They're too confusing. The end compost is affected. And I don't believe any of those myths are true. In my opinion, they really aren't too difficult to break down in industrial scale piles. They really only last a matter of days to a week under the right conditions. The picture there is a photo of our compost site, and we utilize turned windrow piles with passive aeration. The scale of the piles are about 7 to 8 feet tall by 14 to 16 feet wide and 100 feet long. A reminder, composting is an aerobic process. Just like you and me, the microbes require oxygen, a food source, and basically a home to be productive and break organic materials down most efficiently. Anaerobic conditions like those in a landfill that emits methane gas from organics breaking down is what I want to avoid. I do this by regulating the carbon to nitrogen ratio and making sure the pile has the proper moisture content, as well as taking temperatures along the way and turning the pile, of course. So this photo is what I see after our drivers' collection routes every day. My first job is to inspect and remove any non-compostables I see before this material gets mixed into the windrow. Based on what comes in for the day, I'll add a carbon amendment source of wood chips or add active compost and mix and blend well. Paper products of all kinds, which include napkins, newspaper, cardboard, anything non-coated or glossy, are considered a carbon source. Certified compostable products act as that carbon source and add structure to my piles. Since the piles are passively aerated, meaning we're not forcing air into the pile, I rely on the structure heavily to provide free airspace so the microbes can remain in an aerobic environment. Of course, when the environment is anaerobic, there are strong odors, you're generating methane, and in general, compostable products do not perform well breaking down. Typically, the majority of the feedstock is contained in BPI certified compostable liners for ease of use and cleanliness for the customer. Okay, so this photo was a load from an event that exclusively used certified compostable products. I love seeing this type of thing happen successfully, but there's always a little caveat of some type of contamination that sneaks in. Communication is key when we receive contamination from any residential or commercial partner, so we can remedy the problem and stop future contamination. And it's understood that for most people, education is still needed to know what to throw in the bin, and reminders are helpful, but really the branding or the labeling help me and help the consumer know what's compostable, what's not. Single-use or to-go products are probably the most commonly or the most confusing by the average person who isn't aware of what they're throwing away, or who isn't aware that what they're throwing away isn't truly compostable. Things that pair with food as well, that you might have with your lunch, like ketchup packets, things of that nature, or like the yogurt cup. Biodegradable and compostable do not mean the same thing. And just because food is contacting a product does not mean it's compostable. So every day, I incorporate the mixture of feedstocks into the windrow by creating a cavity or a trench with my loader bucket, and then filling the fresh materials inside the pile and recovering it. The most important thing about processing certified compostable products is that they remain within the core of the pile to break down effectively. When they're on the edge of the pile and not in the right pocket, so to speak, they do not break down as they should. The pile needs to have the right amount of wetness as well as aeration so that the microbes can do their job. Not too wet or dry, sort of like a wrung out sponge. And just a reminder, microbes swim, not walk. So the temperatures in the pile in an active industrial scale compost pile sterilize any pathogens or weed seeds that may be present. We call this the thermophilic stage of composting. When the pile is within the range of 131 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, I'll turn it multiple times over a period of time to ensure everything in the pile reaches temperature. I don't add anything to make the pile heat up. It heats up naturally when it has the proper carbon to nitrogen ratio, a critical mass, which is essentially just a cubic yard or greater of volume, and the proper moisture content. I'm simply manipulating the feedstocks in the mix to allow the microbes to do their work most effectively. After several days in the thermophilic stage, most of the certified compostable products are visibly breaking down, along with organic bits of material around them. These photos show how I use the loader bucket to stir up the pile. Turning the pile this way breaks up clumps, distributes moisture, and is basically mixing the pile from the inside out. This is also an opportunity where I could apply water if the pile is too dry, but I rely heavily on my feedstocks, namely fruits, vegetables, things of, food sources to provide that moisture content, especially in the summer. In addition to just a loader, there is specialized equipment out there that really does a better job at mixing or is more comprehensive at mixing. These are called compost turners, and they can either be pulled with a tractor or they propel themselves. And they work their way through the pile with more or less like a horizontal auger, and they stir through really effectively. They can break stuff up a little bit better and also apply moisture at the same time. Okay, so here's these two photos are examples of BPI certified products. And I wanted to highlight some of what I like to see are, the color, something that's bold, whether it says compost me on it in bright green and it's bold, easy to read from my perspective in the loader and for the consumer to know where to throw it. It's a green band, or on the case of the cup on the right, it's just a bright green color. I actually picked that one up because I assumed it's just a green cup, sort of like a red cup is. But to my surprise, it had the branding, the embossed BPI logo on the bottom, and it was clear to me now that, oh, this is a certified product. And on the left are some PLA cups mid decomposition there, so you can kind of see they start to more or less just fall apart and disappear within the pile. I really appreciate the designs that are bold and recognizable. That helps me out so much. And all the time I see a different certified product that's new to me, and I have to kind of stop what I'm doing, take a quick look, and then I know. Okay, so here's an example. It's quite literally a green product. It's a green wash product. It's just a green conventional plastic liner that is not certified nor compostable. These type of products negatively affect the finished compost value because they will be shredded up and turn into microplastic or something that you can see in the finished compost, and nobody wants to buy that. These products, along with products labeled, or greenwash products, along with products labeled biodegradable, only add to the confusion of what's actually compostable. All right. Screening is one of the final stages of the composting process. So right there in the photo, you can see a loader emptying a bucket of unscreened compost into a trommel. There's 2 conveyor belts, one that takes the overages or the coarse materials or things that are just not compostable off one end, and the other conveyor takes the fines or the finished compost product and sends it the other way. Screening is not essential for your home compost, but for industrial scale, it is. The overs materials can be reused if they're not too heavily contaminated. Depending on what type of machine you're using to screen, it may be more difficult to separate the non-compostables from the leftover wood, which is generally a lot of what it comes out as overs. Unfortunately, it's a lot of plastic contaminants, conventional plastic, that it becomes very difficult to separate. And following the screening, the finished compost is left to cure in piles a little bit longer before it's ready to be taken away and used. And so my final slide here is some finished compost, freshly screened, and I don't encounter any residuals from certified compostables in my finished compost. I can confidently say that they break down in our process and leave no physical trace or toxins. I believe that certified compostable products are beneficial to the composting movement and my process at the site. I see them bringing in more organics that would have gone to the landfill. And in order to divert more organics from the landfill, we need to create more awareness about why this is such an important choice. Education around composting should start while people are in grade school. In time, and additionally, as more products become more mainstream, the cost of them will go down. So eventually we will have the composting infrastructure to break these down in every community and accessibility. But first and foremost, we need to educate people, and the compostable products will follow. That's all I got. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Greg, Peter, Savannah. Before we get into our questions, any initial commentary you may have from anything you heard each other say?
I was just thinking, yeah, certified compostable, BPI certified compostable products do not contain PFAS. So that's an area of concern. It's an emerging area of concern in the composting industry, is what are the levels of PFAS in our finished compost. We're a passive receiver of those materials, so it's really hard for us to know where it's coming from. And with no established safe zone yet, and testing in the lab is expensive, it's a challenge for us right now. So a lot of
different vectors for PFAS through food contact surfaces.
Yeah.
Savannah, I saw you unmuted for a moment there. Did you have?
Just Greg, I really appreciate your presentation. And something that I think is so important to flag is that contamination is due to the inverse of compostables. Compostables are actually the solution to address contamination. And it's that inverse, it's these greenwashing alternatives that are using that same coloring to confuse consumers. I'll never forget, my husband works in the sustainability space in the city of Atlanta, and their team purchased a type of product that was green that used the language that I was sharing. And it was sent over to the Compost Now site. And when I saw it, he felt horrible. And that's just how easy it is to confuse people today. And that's why these certifications matter so much. And I will say something that's really exciting is that legislation is finally coming on board to that realization. And there's certain states within their truth in labeling laws, like Colorado, for instance, where they are now banning the use of those same type of labeling and language among uncompostable packaging, or also I think I made up a word there, non-compostable, to ensure that confusion doesn't exist. And so I'm excited to see legislation beginning to tackle that kind of nuance.
I have one question. Question here. and I know the answer to it, but I wanted to. So why? Uh, can we talk about the difference between industrial or commercial composting of the nature that is uh, uh, at an Organicycle type facility, and to what I believe the BPI the BPI standards are uh, uh, specified towards, versus backyard composting or even community scale composting.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. So
And why a BPI product would not be specified for disposal in one of a backyard or smaller compost yard.
yeah, it's really about the scale of your pile. To start, if you don't have that critical mass, you're not generating enough microbial activity or temperature within the pile to effectively break down the PLA-based materials as well as or products as well as PLA lined like a hot coffee cup or utensils. Those will just look like the day you threw them in if you're throwing them in a home kind of cold composting pile. Um, but things that are I've seen actually paper bags that have BPI certification on them, and it's just a regular old paper lunch bag. Those you can throw in all day into your home bin, including grocery bags, things of that nature, napkins, paper towels, or toilet paper tubes. Um, but the certification, it really demands the scale. It's not that you couldn't do it in your backyard, but most people don't have a pile. They're not that diligent about composting at home, and they don't have enough feedstock to really keep the pile active and hot enough. You really need that temperature range of, I don't know what it drops off at, but I like the sweet spot of 131 to 160 degrees.
Yeah, and I'm happy to add on from the product side. It's funny, Greg. We like to consider ourselves compost incubators at our house. So we've got our Compost Now subscription for all the heavier things, and then we've got different compost piles at Turning One, and then we got our 3-stage one in the backyard, and get our toddler involved to test out these different products. So something I wanted to flag that's exciting is that this is still such a new and emerging field. That's why I highlighted the farmer's fiber line as an example. There's a lot of different compostable products that can now meet different temperature needs. So exactly to what Greg's saying, standard commercial compostable products are meant to break down in those settings in 90 to 180 days, meeting that temperature grade, right? That is the most efficient way to break down things and break them down fast. However, BPI has recently launched a home compostability certification. This past fall, they launched it formally. So you're going to begin to see that in the market. And what I love about BPI certification is commercial is always the basis. And then there is the opportunity for products to be commercial and home. What that means that these products can also break down in a lower temperature environment, just as what Greg was saying. Now, the timeline will be longer. There's an expectation of, because my pile versus my uncle's versus my dad's or my aunt's are all going to look a little different. So there's variability around the time that will break down and the temperatures that it's at. But especially on the bioplastic side, so PLA is primarily designed for commercial composting setting, but new chemistries and new technologies are coming out for home compostable bioplastics. I know there was a question in the chat about that. So PHA is one of those. It follows a slightly different chemistry. And what's so cool about it is that it follows fermentation to actually bring together sugars and oils to create this bioplastic. And it requires a much lower temperature grade in order to break down successfully in a home composting system. Across the board, to what Greg was saying, I would strongly recommend ripping up or doing an initial shred before you throw things in. That helps speed up the process and the oxygen. But there are varying different types of technologies. And then to what Peter was saying earlier, it is so important to just think about performance and what customers need. So while there are many different technologies, it's important to think through, all right, what do we need in order for this to work, because that's the most sustainable thing, is we want to ensure it works, and it performs and then breaks down as well. Just like Peter, we have also had a pallet of products melt in Puerto Rico, right? And so we need to be designing for the conditions that we're operating within. And so some of those home compostable products, just the one thing is that they're meant to break down in a lower temperature setting. They're meant to not last forever, right? So it's important to keep that in mind as you're looking at the different options.
Can we talk a little bit about the perceived cost penalty between uh, uh, sustainable foodware, particularly BPI certified compostable foodware, and incumbent products that we think there's a lot of reasons to encourage substitution for? Uh, Expanded polystyrene, commonly branded aluminum styrofoam, I think is a good example of one that we've uh, encouraged substitution for. Uh, and Peter, Peter Savannah, I think maybe start with you on this. How
Yeah.
uh, there is going to be a cost penalty, most likely, right?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I can jump in on this one. Appreciate the ask. Our goal at Gordon Food Service, I guess, was to have certified compostable products or sustainable type products be almost equivalently priced to our operator customers where possible, to kind of encourage customers to lean into those solutions if they have the desire to lean that direction. But there is potentially a cost to Gordon Food Service from our manufacturers that could be more expensive, but we're trying to grow this compostable industry where possible. We're finding more and more. You mentioned polystyrene foam. Um, it, More and more states across the United States are banning foam. But the reality is it's still fairly cheap for manufacturers to produce foam. So there are customers that like that because it is a fairly cheap product, with it being an expanded polystyrene product, that they have to use less material to make that type of product in the market. So we're just really trying to encourage customers and users to lean into what is demanded from their local environment, and lean into proper sustainable solutions. But I think one of the challenge asks is, what do we believe the biggest challenge will be? We are continuing to see rising costs throughout the industry. However, the plastics industry is also seeing costs. There's been some international tensions as of recently that have increased oil prices, and that's going to increase plastics prices as well. So it's an interesting question that we're all trying to navigate together, but costs is going to continue to be a challenging piece throughout encouraging sustainable solutions. I hope that answered some of your questions there, Daniel.
It does, Peter, and it sounds like you're in a situation where you're finding it where you're getting fairly close to parity with the incumbents and your customer base, so the food service operators. They're responding to that not only because of the value, but because there are operational and customer value attributes that certainly overweigh any additional costs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I'd say with the majority of our product line, we can be at parity. Foam is a tough one to beat, just with the scale of operations and the cost to produce. They can make that fairly cost effectively, which is why it's still in some markets today. But I'm encouraged that our local governments are doing the right things to limit the foam in our markets as well.
Savannah, do you have any comments on that topic?
I mean, I think it was answered beautifully, Peter. I think to add around what we were mentioning on EPR and what Peter was hitting on, to add a little color to that, EPR is going live in 7 states and representing over 20% of the U.S. population. So that's pretty staggering, and especially as you're thinking about marketing, the market and purchase power. And EPR largely rests on this idea of eco-modulation. So that's what Peter was referencing around how even though things like foam are cheaper, right, economically to bring into the market, EPR will create fees based on different substrates to balance out the cost of disposing of that, right, and bringing that back onto producers rather than taxpayers. So now knowing that EPR is going to be expanding across a large amount of the United States and incorporating eco-modulation based upon regional recycling and composting and landfill needs, I think that's going to help level the playing field, and help expand these types of sustainable solutions into the market. And likewise, I think, continuing to grow manufacturing is another factor across the board, to help create access. And it is a very dynamic time for all supply chains. One other thing that hasn't been mentioned, but Greg, I'd be curious for your perspective, is because we are part of a broader value chain, there's also something to be said around the cost of compost versus artificial fertilizers. And as the price of oil is going up and international supply chains are going up, I imagine fertilizer being a large expense for farmers, that compost stands to be a really great solution for them too.
Yeah, absolutely. And compost is a soil amendment. You can add additional fertilizer to it, but it does contain plant nutrients, and essentially it just contains a lot of organic matter. So to add to the soil for the microbes to kind of unlock those nutrients for plants. So I see our industry, the demand for our end product, only continuing to grow as people become more aware that it speaks for itself when you use it, and has less environmental impacts like extracting more oil and potential runoff of fertilizer and things of that nature. So we need more composters out there. We need more infrastructure around the state and the country to fill those needs.
Thank you, Greg. And I think we're going to have to wrap up our Q&A here for purpose of the time. We'll have a few questions. We'll be asking our panelists to support us homework assignments and get those out in the fall communication. Because I can say I for one am particularly interested in the value case for certified compostables when you don't have access to a commercial composter at your facility or in your region, because I think that's something that we would recommend. It does create some confusion in the market. I want to thank Peter, Greg, and Savannah for joining us today. We will have a recording of this presentation available, and please keep an eye out for both a survey that should pop up as soon as our screen goes dark here in a moment, and a follow-up email with additional information and on all the companies represented in our panel today, and the discussions we talked about herein. Thank you again. Looking forward to seeing everyone for the next session in our series here. Again, thank you, Peter, Savannah, and Greg for all you can today. I learned quite a bit.